Design reviews, HAZOPs, risk analysis, and making lessons learned become best practices. Learning objective. After this module, you'll be able to demonstrate knowledge of when design reviews are carried out, by whom, when and why, articulate the need for commissioning to actively participate in HAZOP studies, explain how to conduct a lessons learned program, and describe how to create best practices. Design reviews. At key stages during feed and detailed engineering, a number of design reviews will be carried out. These will include layout and 3D model reviews, P and ID process flow diagram reviews, piping isometric reviews, risk assessments, and progressive hazard and operability or HAZOP studies. Design reviews are an essential part of the process of good engineering design and project management. The value to the project is that issues identified during this phase will be many times less costly to rectify than when discovered during construction. As a guide, cost ratios may be in the order of 1 to 1,000. In other words, $1 of design time might cost more than $1,000 in the field, with serious implications to the project schedule. HAZOPs. As defined by Wikipedia, a hazard and operability study is a structured and systematic examination of a planned or existing process or operation in order to identify and evaluate problems that may represent risks to personnel or equipment or prevent efficient operation. The HAZOP technique was initially developed to analyze chemical process systems, but has later been extended to other types of systems and also to complex operations, such as nuclear power plant operation, and to use software to record the deviation and consequence. A HAZOP is a qualitative technique based on guide words and is carried out by a multidisciplinary team, a HAZOP team, during a series of meetings. For guidance, refer to British Standard BS IEC 61882 of 2001, Hazard and Operability Studies. Outline of methodology. The method applies to processes, existing or planned, for which design information is available. This commonly includes a process flow diagram which is examined in small sections, such as individual items of equipment or connecting pipework. For each of these, a design intention is specified. For example, in a chemical plant, a pipe may have the intention to transport 2.3 kilograms per second of 96% sulfuric acid at 20 degrees Celsius at a pressure of 2 bar from a pump to a heat exchanger. The intention of the heat exchanger may be to heat 2.3 kilograms per second of 96% sulfuric acid from 20 degrees Celsius to 80 degrees Celsius. The HAZOP team then determines what are the possible significant deviations from each intention, feasible causes, and likely consequences. They then decide whether existing design safeguards are sufficient or whether additional actions are needed to reduce risks to an acceptable level. Specialist software is used for documenting and recording outcomes from the HAZOP meetings. For guidance on how to perform HAZOP studies, refer to the embedded file. HAZOPs. All major operating companies will have their own version of performing hazard and operability studies. Examples from Chevron and Shell are shown on the next two slides. Chevron use a technique called hazard identification, or HAZID. In this, they assess individual and combined energy sources to determine if a hazard could be present. The energy sources are mechanical, electrical, pressure, temperature, chemical, biological, radiation, sound pressure, gravity, and motion. In the embedded file, the operator Shell show how the HAZOP process was used to achieve a flawless startup at their project in Australia. At the time, they were using a process called Flawless Startup Initiative, FSI. Planning for a safe restart is shown in the following diagram, with the stage gate process going through engineering design all the way to safe handover to operations. Risk analysis and assessment. We can really say that risk analysis and lessons learned are two sides of the same coin. On the one side, we see risk assessment and analysis, and on the other side, we see our lessons learned. What does this mean? This means that our risk assessments and our risk analyses should be our assessment of what will be happening, and our lessons learned are an analysis or an assessment of what has happened. So, if we say that our lessons learned are our 2020 hindsight, then we want our risk assessments and our risk analysis to be 2020 foresight, looking at what we want to eliminate or minimize in the future, two sides of the same coin. Therefore, what I'm setting out to explain in this module is that our lessons learned must become our best practices. Making lessons learned best practices. Some people see lessons learned as a problem, whereas other people see them as an opportunity. In order to make lessons learned become best practices, there are 4 steps we must go through. First, create a safe environment. Second, allow an adequate amount of time for reflection. Do not attempt to gather lessons learned straight away after a particular project or event. Allow people time to reflect and consider. Third, start by gathering ideas. Ideas gathered by creating a safe environment after a period of time is the best way to make a start on gathering lessons learned. And finally, ask some questions. What, when, who, why, how, if, and so on. Bring these together. Analyze and assess them, perhaps in a database, perhaps informally, amongst the team. Document the lessons learned. Do not discard any of the possible lessons learned at this stage. Make sure on completion of the lessons learned that these are added to the risk assessments that the commissioning manager and his team will put together as part of the overall risk assessment process for the project. Why exactly is this important? As an engineer, technician, operator or manager, you must get out on the job and walk around with your eyes open, sensors on full alert, and actively consider on-the-job behaviours. Be prepared to question what is happening and why. We know that there is a great deal of difference between the exploration and drilling activities that were taking place on Deepwater Horizon and the commissioning and startup activities on a plant or facility. However, as a commissioning manager, there are a number of key lessons to be learned from Professor Anthony Hopkins' assessments of events on Deepwater Horizon. Commissioning and startup involves a number of procedures to sequentially test systems at high pressures, high temperatures, with high voltages, at full load and full power. Much of what we do takes place in cramped spaces and sometimes in confined access locations. Everything we do requires good leadership, good training and good communications. Remember, during commissioning and startup, we will most probably be utilising services and support from contractor organisations. This means that each of those people providing support and working with us must also be properly trained and competent. There absolutely must be excellent communications from the commissioning manager to every person participating in that particular procedure. Each person must know the job they are required to do, that they know the risks involved, and that they are confident to demonstrate that they have the skills needed when asked. Pay particular attention to changing circumstances and ensure, when a change occurs, that this is clearly communicated along with the required response and actions required from each member of the team and support members on that team. For example, when pressurizing or depressurizing equipment, of course, you will ensure that the area is barriered off to prevent non-authorized persons from entering. And you must also communicate with each team member and support member what is happening. Do not assume that team members and particularly support members automatically know what is about to take place or is going on during the procedure. Ensure there is a clear chain of command in communications at all times. For example, when an individual is required to open or close a valve, or energize or depressurize a system. Be aware that a large number of projects are executed in countries that do not have English as the first language. Very often, the workforce providing support to commissioning and startup will include people that do not have English as their first language. When this happens, training and workforce competency, along with good communications, are vital. Being listened to is not the same as being understood. Just because people appear to be listening, do not assume that they understand what you are saying. Make spot checks and have rehearsals to make sure every person on the team, including support members, knows what is required of them to perform the particular procedure. To some people, these measures may sound long-winded and time-consuming. They are not. What I am describing here are the measures to ensure each system and ultimately the project are commissioned and started up on time and safely. If anyone is still in doubt over this, consider the total cost in time, money, and accidental loss of human life caused by cutting corners and not asking questions. Make sure your commissioning and startup activities are best practices and not part of an accident investigation with lessons to be learned.